As Bitcoin drops more than $10,000 from its current all-time high, the question of the market and the question that this video will be responding to is when, and more importantly, where is this next low that everyone is frantically searching for likely to occur? With that said, welcome back to EllioTrades channel. I'm your host Krown again today with some good old TA. Took a break yesterday, perhaps at the wrong time in this market, as we did see a bit of a tumble, you might say. And of course, that is why we did upload the video last week on how to identify a major top. With that said, we obviously do daily analysis on Bitcoin on my channel, which you can find in the link in the description below. And with that in mind, I think it's time for us to waste no more time and to get directly into the chart. So first and foremost, let's actually start off with some fun here. Now, last week we uploaded a video on good ways to identify a major top in a market. And if you were watching that video, then you likely knew one of the big things that I look for is on the daily specifically, and I'm looking for bearish divergence between two local highs. In this case, we have high number one right here. We have a higher high right here. And if we go to our RSI momentum oscillator, you can see that we are creating lower highs right there, also known as bearish divergence. Essentially, you know this intuitively. You have your momentum going down with price action going up. What's most likely to happen? A bit of a correction. And in this case, well, we got a correction and a half, you might even say, with volatility also increasing as well. So if you identify that, great job. You have a very bright and strong future in trading or investing or whatever world you might be operating in. And if you didn't, well, study this because it will be very useful to you in the future as well. Anyways, it goes without saying that as long as Bitcoin is correcting, the majority of alts will be doing something very similar as well, except for the very strong ones, of which AVAX would be one of them. Anyways, let's now address the question of the day. When is this low likely to come in? Well, I want to share with you something that I found that is just one of those weird things. And I can provide an explanation for it, although there's no way to fully verify it. And more importantly, when it comes to trading, when it comes to technical analysis, at the end of the day, if it works, it works. And it is this. It appears that we have found, meaning Bitcoin has found, most of its major lows in the last 6 months, especially around the 19th, 20th, and 21st of the month, as far as dates go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw on my drawing tools here. And all of these vertical lines represent around the 20th, let's say, of the month. You'll notice our last one actually was not obviously a low. It was actually a high before a nice retracement. In fact, this one to the tune of about 67 to 57, $10,000. Rather, significant. Anyways, all of the ones prior to that, as you will see, are rather interesting. Starting off with this one over here, 21st of September. What was the significance of that? That was the $40,000 low for Bitcoin before launching to basically our current all-time highs right now. With that in mind, understand that we did spend some time on the lows there, but obviously did not trade lower than the 21st of September. What about the one before that in August? Well, what do we have right here? Another nice local low before a nearly $10,000 rally from $44,000 to a ripe old high price of $53,000. What about the month before that in July? Well, we have the 20th of July right here on that beautiful bear trap before going to, well, essentially $53,000. What about the time before that? June 21st or 22nd right here. Major low. Yes, it was a very nice and nasty wick to the downside, and did trade up nearly almost $10,000 actually from that low as well. Rather interesting. One before that, oh, I'm sure everyone remembers this one. This was the 20th of May, the major first spike low that we saw on a daily that essentially traveled all the way from 43,600 to 30,000, almost even, and did bounce up over the next couple days from 30,000 to 42,000, more than $10,000 rally. Not bad. What about the time before that? Back on over here in late April, of course, getting this low at about $47,000 before then trading up a little bit more than $10,000 to our $58,500 highs right here. The time before that, again, right here, I don't mean to be long-winded, but this is important. And that was $51,000 all the way to $64,000. Not bad, you might say. And then this one was a little bit later in February, to be fair. On this low, this was the 28th of February, not around the 20th, to be fair. And then, of course, the one before that was January in 2021 and December over here as well January 22nd right here on the low. And then, of course, the year prior to that, December 20th on that spike low right there as well. All very interesting. And of course, today, at the time of recording this video, it is the 17th of November. And the 20th to 21st is just a few days away from us. So if we're talking about when to time the low, there is something very interesting going on right here, which perhaps could play into that. You will likely notice, however, that does not imply that we have the low in just yet. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Personally speaking, I do think that Bitcoin spent some time going sideways here at minimum. Even if you're super bullish or super bearish, likely to spend some time consolidating before the next leg. Okay, so is there an explanation for this? So I come from traditional markets. I used to be an equity options market maker authorized trader on ARCA. And one of the big things about the third Friday, essentially around the 20th, anywhere between about the 19th and 21st, typically, you have what's called regular monthly expirations, which is a really big one. Now, why is this a big one for equity options? Because these regular expirations typically have a lot of trading volume on those expirations, and big money managers, big portfolio managers will very likely have to essentially rebalance and make moves for the next month or 2 months to come. So if we are making a correlation between that and cryptocurrency land, do we have an options market here? Yes. Is it as big as traditional markets? Absolutely not. So that would be a good counterpoint to what I'm saying. But if you forced a gun to my head and said, Krown, figure it out, that would be my best explanation. The other explanation, moons. Fair enough, man. Anyways, to whatever tickles your fancy, the data is as the data is. And of course, whenever we're talking about fun stuff on this channel, we always want to support it with statistics and actual, facts in front of your face. And of course, you make the decision for yourself. I just thought that was rather interesting. Okay, so let's get into the next portion of this video as I check my notes, making sure that we are exactly where we need to be. Okay, beautiful. All right, so I want to bring you back over here. And there's a few other interesting things going on with our current market structure for the long term. So please understand we are talking about macro structure here. This implies that essentially Bitcoin, we're not really in danger of destroying the macro structure as long as Bitcoin's above our last macro high or low, and that was about 42 to 44,000 bucks, 44 on a weekly, let's say. So understand that, we could see some serious downside between where we're at right now and where a low could potentially come in and still remain with what we're going to talk about here. What do all of these vertical lines have in common? They are all represent halving dates for Bitcoin. Now, that's interesting in and of itself, right? We can see that the cycles are obviously getting longer. We addressed this in a prior video, and we also documented, where this cycle could potentially end. Personally speaking, I think at minimum it ends in either like May-ish, or at latest perhaps September, October of this next year. So that does imply that we do expect, more sluggish and sideways behavior over a longer period of time. As you can see over here, this first major halving, there was just an absolute explosion coming out of that macro base. So let's zoom in over here. Okay, so what was happening? Bitcoin was consolidating, we get the halving, yes, boom, major move up. And let's focus on this portion right here. This is what a lot of people refer to as the 2013 double bubble. And are there some similarities with what we're looking at right now? Actually, yes, in fact. Okay, so Bitcoin rallies all the way up to $300 and then drops down to the tune of, we should do this on a closing basis. Make this nice and equated for. And on a closing basis, drops down about 53%. Okay, interesting. Well, what is that? Why is that interesting? Well, when we take this one step further and we throw on a fib retracement right here, you'll notice that this whole consolidation after the halving over here, after this first major burst to the upside, consolidated between the 1.618 and had a base at the 1.272. Once it broke above the 1.618 after from April to October, like 4 or 5 month long consolidation. I don't know months, I'm American, but once it broke up and closed on a new high right there, then you got your major massive move to the 2.272 between there and the 2.414. Interesting. Okay, let's go to the next one over here. Well, here's your halving date. Bitcoin starts to charge back up around its prior highs, breaks them, and then what do? We have a major sell-off intra-cycle here. You probably remember this one if you were around during 2017. And what happens during this time? We get a nice 41, 42% correction right there. Significant, absolutely in line with a 50% correction. And once again, we see a consolidation between the 1 spot 272 and the 1 spot 618 right here. And once it breaks above the 1 spot 618, actually gets tested again a little bit later, but ultimately it is, well, all moon ahead, I guess. Now, I should also explain why are these Fibonacci, or where these Fibonacci retracements coming from. They're coming from the prior macro base before that halving date. So this one correlates to essentially the 2011 to 2012 consolidation. This one over here obviously correlates to the 2013 to 2015, 2016 consolidation. Okay, so let's go to our current setup over here. We have a halving date as well. Okay, very similar, right? And then what is Bitcoin doing right now? Well, it's played out from bottom to top. Thus far, a 51% drawdown, or you might say crash. Very similar to what we saw over here in 2013. I would say also very comparable to that May correction in 2017, or May-June correction in 2017. Okay, but that's not everything, right? Let's throw on this Fib retracement. Off of this consolidation base between 2018, resolved in 2020, what is Bitcoin doing right now? It's consolidating exactly between the 1 spot 618 with the base at the 1 spot 272. Precisely exactly what we saw over here in the double bubble. Even percentage gains and losses extremely similar, or percentage losses extremely similar. I don't know about percentage gains. And this one over here, I would say very comparable. They rhyme, if you will. They don't need to be exact, but rhyming is of interest here. Okay, so what does this imply? It does imply that as long as we are especially above the 1 spot 272, this is macro bullish. Is that helpful to you? Probably not. Why is it not helpful to you? Because Krown, that is a nearly $30,000 move to the downside, another 50% shaved off the current price action. Okay, but can we come up with anything better than that? Well, if you are looking at 2013 as a fractal, which I suppose it does work as, where would we be within this fractal? We would be right about here, actually. And what was significant about this? You'll also notice I have a 1 spot 414 Fibonacci extension, and that's the yellow one. And where do we spike down into? Right there, essentially the median of this general consolidation range. And do we do the same thing over here? Yes. Hold it right there. Yes, we do test it to the downside right there. However, this is essentially your major area. And what do we have right here? Well, where did Bitcoin correct down to after that first initial drive off of the bear trap in July? The 1 spot 414. Very interesting. So with all of that in mind, I do see a lot of similarities between this. Is it a fractal? Perhaps yes. Is price action fractal? That's a whole nother discussion. Technically speaking, it is. Is that a full statement? Absolutely not. And perhaps for another video. I don't want to make this one too long and we're already getting way out there. So if it is a fractal, what do we expect after that? Well, you will notice that this high was put in between the 272 and the 414. This high was put in at about the 2618. And long term on this one, where would those relevant areas be? In the low $200,000 territory. Now, to be fair, that's still well and far away. Is that happening anytime soon? No. If you go back to my video on this channel and also on my channel as well, that talks about when, we could potentially see an end of this market cycle based off of prior statistics. Well, it could be quite some time. I mean, we're talking at least like half a year away, if not more. And with all of that in mind, could those be relevant then? Yes. Are they relevant today or tomorrow? No. Do I think that Bitcoin's topping in December of this year? The data would say otherwise. Anyways, we've spoken about all of this here. Let's now dig back down into a bit of the minutia, because I do know it's relevant for many people out there. In fact, definitely myself as well, as this is where all the fun stuff is going on. Okay, so we spoke about, I'm giving away my cards right there. We spoke about this as being a high, and yes, it was a major high right there. We've already played out $10,000 move, and it's been thus far about a 15% correction. Definitely decent, but it's no secret that Bitcoin does love its 20 to 30% corrections within the context of its general upwards markets. Let's go over here and let's identify the last major top that Bitcoin had. A lot of similarities. Uptrend, uptrend, uptrend. Where's your last higher low? Here. We have a higher high. Okay, great. Still uptrend on. Boom. Smash down. As soon as we close below this prior higher low, it is time to be on lower high watch for a confirmed reversal for more sustained downside. Obviously, the next low gets put in right here. So just marking that one off. And then we see this one right here put in a lower high at $58,500. It will also come in, as you'll notice, right at the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement. That is a bearish retracement, and that is typically where you expect your lower highs in a long-term reversal. Well, let's go to our current structure over here. We have low, or we're having an uptrend the whole way through. Here's our last higher low before, well, yesterday. Here's our higher high, comes all the way down, closes on a lower low right here. Okay, we are now on, if you are following this, lower high watch. Where would I expect lower highs to come in from? Well, if we do the same thing over here, where's the 618? Right below $65,000, which is also kind of around this spike right here. I would go as far as saying that while Bitcoin is likely to bounce off this current region, you know, over this next week or whatever it ends up being, perhaps after the 20th, if you subscribe to that earlier analysis, then I'd be looking for Bitcoin to generally work its way back on up over here. And any sort of weakness under $65,000 specifically is going to be considered a lower high. If we do confirm a lower high, it is then a confirmed reversal. And I would be looking for, you know, the next month or so to be down, very likely somewhere into this blue box territory over here, which if Bitcoin were to get there from top to bottom would be about a 25.5% correction, also in line with your last prior major high from early September, which is kind of like classic areas to be aware of. So again, short term, I do think Bitcoin's bouncy here. However, the question is, how high does the bounce get? Now understand, this likely takes time. From this low to this high was more than 3 weeks. And right now, we actually don't even have a confirmed local low in here. So if it were to put in a local low here, we'd expect over the next few weeks, Bitcoin works its way back up and hopefully it clears above $65,000, specifically on a daily close. If that happens, I will be happy to call this consolidation resolved. We have our next major move to the upside to prepare for over the next following months. And well, that would look very, very good. If Bitcoin does show weakness here and put in a lower high, I would be looking much lower. And that very likely does drive the rest of the cryptocurrency market lower as well. I want to be very adamant about saying this, however. Bitcoin is not macro bearish as long as we are above the last higher low on the weekly, which is all the way over here at $44,000. And that would just be a correction down to the 21 to be fair as well, around $52,000 if we were to play that. Should also be known, however, you know, on the topic of bearish divergence, we actually do have some potentially forming by end of week if Bitcoin essentially fails to reclaim about $62,000 by the end of the weekend. Okay, I think we have covered everything that needs to be covered there. I understand that there's going to be a lot of questions with this. Please let us know in the comment section below. More than happy to follow up on that. And of course, this is going to affect all altcoin analysis, of which we've been putting plenty out. I do believe pretty much all of those analyses have hit their first, and most have actually even hit their second targets as well. The very long-term targets, you know, those clickbait type targets, those are going to be postponed for a while. And I mean, they were always, you know, going to be very far away anyways, like earliest 2022. So with all of that in mind, keep your eyes on Bitcoin. Yes, there are going to be a few one-offs here and there that are going to be doing their own thing, namely AVAX, for example. But this next few weeks here are absolutely critical for the general direction of this market. With that said, I want to wish you well, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.